This narrow passage, the Strait of Hormuz, dictates the flow of 20% of the world's oil. Right now, it is the primary leverage point in this escalating conflict. Active missile fire has ceased after 2 months of combat. However, the absence of fighting has left both sides locked in a high-stakes standoff that has paralyzed global trade. The resulting naval blockades have created a global siege. Energy expert Daniel Yergin classifies this exact event as history's biggest energy disruption. Millions of people are feeling the crush at the petrol pump, exhausted by the economic strain. The overwhelming public demand is to sign a deal quickly and return to the normal life we had 3 months ago. But history offers a brutal warning for this exact scenario. Starting a war is easy. Negotiating an end to one is intensely complex. Rushing a treaty right now could trigger a disaster far worse than the original conflict. Consider the attempt to end the Vietnam War. Diplomats convened in Paris in May 1968, sitting across polite conference tables for 5 agonizing years. Yet, while those men debated terms and conditions, the brutal combat never paused. Soldiers continued to bleed and die in the Vietnamese jungles for that entire half-decade of so-called peace talks. Or look at the end of the First World War. The global celebration that kicked off with the armistice in November 1918 was dangerously premature. By the time the ink dried on the Treaty of Versailles in June 1919, the agreement had become a weapon. The terms were deliberately engineered to economically break and deeply humiliate Germany. That extreme humiliation didn't secure lasting peace. It laid the exact psychological and economic foundation required for Adolf Hitler to construct the Third Reich. History shows that treaties built on vengeance or desperation often serve as the blueprint for the next, more destructive war. Then there is the danger of the phantom war, a scenario where politicians secure peace on paper, but the soldiers on the ground are completely blind to the fact that the conflict is legally over. During the War of 1812, American and British negotiators finally agreed to terms, signing the Treaty of Ghent in Belgium on December 24, 1814. But messages could only travel as fast as a sailing ship. Due to that immense communication gap across the ocean, Andrew Jackson's forces fought the incredibly bloody Battle of New Orleans in January 1815, weeks after the conflict had officially ended. A few decades later, the United States aggressively pushed its borders outward. President James K. Polk sparked the Mexican-American War specifically to swallow up Western territory. To end the fighting, Polk bypassed his senior cabinet, dispatching bureaucrat Nicholas Trist to secure the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. That single document forced Mexico to hand over California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado for a paltry $15 million. But here's the massive historical twist. At the exact moment those signatures were being applied in February 1848, neither government knew that vast reserves of gold had just been discovered at Sutter's Mill in California. Mexico had unknowingly signed away the catalyst for the greatest gold rush in American history. Rushing to close a deal without knowing the full reality on the ground can permanently forfeit a nation's wealth. These historical warnings converge on the present. We see it in the Strait of Hormuz blockade and the parallel crisis at Venezuela's PDVSA refineries, a situation where the immediate pressure for fuel could blind negotiators to the long-term cost of a rushed agreement. This convergence of energy crises marks a critical turning point. A hasty resolution threatens long-term geopolitical stability, dwarfing the immediate pain of high fuel prices. Compare our modern anxiety to the deliberate strategy of the Allied forces during World War II. At the Casablanca and Tehran conferences, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin presented a unified, uncompromising front. They strictly demanded the unconditional surrender of the Axis powers. By refusing to accept a halfway diplomatic patch just to stop the immediate fighting, they ensured the underlying threat was permanently neutralized. Applying a hasty, poorly conceived diplomatic patch to the Iranian blockade today will not create stability. It will simply arm a geopolitical time bomb for a massive disaster tomorrow. The question is whether world leaders will learn from the scars of history and demand a solid, calculated resolution, or blindly rush into a new trap just for cheaper oil? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.